in the middle of the Italian peninsula, where the Tiber River bends through 7 low hills, there is a city that once ruled the world. Its name is Rome, and like all great things, it begins with a story. According to legend, 2 brothers were born to a priestess and the god of war. Their names were Romulus and Remus, the sons of Mars. A jealous king ordered them drowned in the Tiber, but the servants who carried them could not bring themselves to do it. They placed the infants in a basket and set it on the river. The basket came to rest beneath a fig tree on the slope of a hill called the Palatine. A she-wolf found them and fed them and kept them alive. This is the story Rome told about itself for 1,000 years. Whether it is history or myth matters less than what it reveals. A city that believed it was born of violence and saved by something wild, that saw in the wolf not a threat, but a mother that understood from the very beginning that survival requires both ferocity and tenderness. The brothers grew. They decided to build a city on the hills where the wolf had found them, but they could not agree on which hill. They quarreled, and in that quarrel, Romulus killed Remus, his own brother, and named the city after himself, Rome. It is 753 before the Common Era, and the most powerful civilization the Western world has ever known has just been born in an act of brotherhood and an act of murder. Tonight, we follow its story, from those 7 hills above the Tiber to the farthest edges of the known world, and back again, slowly, calmly, from the very beginning. Close your eyes if you wish. We have a very long journey ahead. We continue our story. For nearly 2.5 centuries, Rome is ruled by kings. 7 of them. Some wise, some cruel, some remembered, some forgotten. The last king is a man named Tarquinius Superbus. Tarquin the Proud, a tyrant, in the truest sense of the word, who rules by fear, who ignores the Senate, who treats the citizens of Rome as subjects rather than people. In 509 before the Common Era, the Romans have had enough. They drive him out. The king is gone, and Rome makes a decision that will shape the next 5 centuries of its history. No more kings. Instead, 2 men will lead the city called consuls, elected every year, each one with the power to veto the other, a system designed so that no single person can ever hold the power of a king again. The Roman Republic is born. It is an extraordinary experiment, not a democracy in the modern sense. The wealthy families, the patricians, hold most of the power. The common people, the plebeians, must fight for every right they eventually receive. But the idea at the heart of it is revolutionary. that power should be shared, that laws should govern equally, that no man should be above the state. The Romans codify their laws in 450 before the Common Era. 12 bronze tablets displayed in the Forum, for all to see, the 12 tables, the foundation of what will become Western legal tradition. Over the following centuries, Rome expands, first across Italy, then across the Mediterranean. Building roads as it goes, the famous roads straight durable, connecting the expanding empire of the Republic to its heart in the Forum. All roads lead to Rome. It begins here. In our next chapter, Rome meets its greatest enemy and nearly loses everything. Rest now. The story continues. We continue our story. We continue our story. Across the Mediterranean Sea, on the northern coast of Africa, in what is today Tunisia, there is a city that rivals Rome in power and ambition. Its name is Carthage. A great trading empire, a naval power, without equal in the Western Mediterranean. Rich, sophisticated, ancient beyond Rome's years. Between 264 and 1460s, before the Common Era, Rome and Carthage fight. 3 great wars, the Punic Wars, the most destructive conflicts the ancient Western world has ever seen. The first war is fought at sea. Rome, a land power, has almost no navy. It captures a Carthaginian warship, studies it, and builds a fleet in 60 days. Then teaches its sailors to fight as if they were soldiers, grappling enemy ships, boarding them, fighting hand to hand on the water. Rome wins the first war. Then comes the second, and with it, one of the most extraordinary military maneuvers in the history of warfare. A Carthaginian general named Hannibal assembles an army in Spain, marches them east across southern Gaul, and then does something no one expects. He crosses the Alps in winter with war elephants. 37 elephants through snow and ice and mountain passes that kill thousands of his men on the other side, Italy and Rome. Hannibal marches through Italy for 15 years, winning battle after battle, destroying Roman armies at Trebia, at Lake Trasimene, at Cannae, where he destroys an army of 70,000 Romans in a single afternoon. The most devastating defeat in Roman history. And yet Rome does not surrender. It raises new armies. It fights on. It sends its own general, Scipio Africanus, to attack Carthage directly and forces Hannibal to return home. Rome wins the second war. The third war ends with Carthage burned to the ground, its people enslaved, its fields salted, so that nothing will grow there again. Rome is now the master of the Mediterranean. In our next chapter, a slave leads an uprising, that shakes the Republic to its core. Rest now. The story continues. We continue our story. Rome is the most powerful city in the known world. Its armies have defeated Carthage. Its roads stretch across continents. Its republic governs millions. But beneath all of this power, beneath the marble in the Senate, and the triumphant generals parading through the Forum, there is another Rome. A Rome built on slavery. At the height of the Republic, perhaps 1/3 of all people in Italy are enslaved, captured in wars, bought and sold in markets, working the farms and the mines and the households of the Roman wealthy. In 73 before the Common Era, in a gladiatorial training school, in the city of Capua, a Thracian slave named Spartacus leads a breakout. 78 gladiators armed with kitchen knives and skewers from the kitchens. They overpower their guards and flee into the countryside. What begins as a breakout becomes something no one expected. Word spreads. Slaves across southern Italy join them. The army grows. 10,000, 50,000, at its peak perhaps 120,000 people. The largest slave rebellion in the history of the ancient world. Spartacus defeats Roman army after Roman army. He is not just a fighter. He is a general who understands terrain and tactics and the minds of his enemies. For 2 years, he holds the might of Rome at bay. In the end, Rome sends its best general, Marcus Licinius Crassus, with 10 new legions, and the rebellion is crushed. 6,000 survivors are crucified along the Appian Way, the road from Capua to Rome. 1 cross every 30 meters for 190 kilometers. A message from Rome to anyone who might consider doing what Spartacus did. Spartacus himself is never found, whether he died in battle or disappeared into history. No one knows. But his name survives, as it always does when someone stands up against impossible odds. In our next chapter, another man stands up and changes everything. Rest now. The story continues. We continue our story. It is January 49 before the Common Era. The northern edge of Italy, a small, unremarkable river called the Rubicon. On its northern bank stands an army, battle-hardened, loyal, veterans of 9 years of war in Gaul, modern-day France, under the command of one man, Gaius Julius Caesar. Caesar is not an ordinary general. He is brilliant, charismatic, a writer who documents his own campaigns with clarity and modesty that conceals their brilliance. A politician who understands that the loyalty of soldiers is built not with commands, but with presence, with shared hardship, with the sense that their general is one of them. He has conquered Gaul, added vast territories to Rome's borders, made himself rich and his soldiers richer, and made himself the most powerful man in the Roman world, which is precisely the problem. The Senate fears him, his rival Pompey fears him. They have ordered him to disband his army and return to Rome as a citizen. To cross the Rubicon with an army is to declare war on Rome itself. It is treason. It is punishable by death. Caesar stands at the river in the winter dark and thinks. And then he speaks. 3 words in Latin, alia iacta est. The die is cast. He leads his army across the Rubicon, and Rome will never be the same again. Civil war erupts. Pompey flees to Greece. Caesar marches through Italy, almost without resistance. The Republic is crumbling, and Caesar is building something in its place. In our next chapter, that something is interrupted on the most famous day in Roman history. Rest now. The story continues. We continue our story. It is the 15th of March, 44 before the Common Era. The Ides of March. Julius Caesar has won. His rivals are dead or defeated. Pompey was assassinated in Egypt. The republic that once checked the ambitions of powerful men has been hollowed out. Caesar has declared himself dictator perpetual, dictator in perpetuity. Not for 6 months, not for a year, forever. He has pardoned his enemies. He has reformed the calendar, the Julian calendar, which will govern the measurement of time in the Western world. For 16 centuries, he has planned new cities, new roads, new laws. He is brilliant. He is generous. He is also, in the eyes of many senators, a king in everything but name. And Rome, they believe, must never again have a king. A group of senators meets in secret, about 60 men. They call themselves the Liberators, the Liberators. Among them is a man named Marcus Junius Brutus. A man Caesar trusts. A man Caesar has pardoned. A man Caesar perhaps loves, like a son. On the morning of March 15th, Caesar walks to the theater of Pompey for a meeting of the Senate. A soothsayer has warned him, beware the Ides of March. His wife has begged him not to go. She has had terrible dreams. He goes anyway. Inside, the senators surround him. One grabs his toga. The daggers come out. 23 stab wounds, one after another, from men he knew, men he trusted. When Brutus steps forward, Caesar stops fighting. He pulls his toga over his face and falls. Julius Caesar is dead. The senators believe they have saved the Republic. They have not. They have only guaranteed that someone new will rise to fill the space. Caesar has left. Someone younger, someone more patient, someone who will finish what Caesar started. In our next chapter, that someone steps forward and changes Rome forever. Rest now. The story continues. We continue our story. Caesar is dead. The conspirators believed they had saved the Republic. Instead, they ignited 14 more years of civil war. From the chaos, one man emerges. His name is Gaius Octavius, Caesar's great-nephew, his adopted son and heir, 18 years old when Caesar is killed, unknown, untested, underestimated by everyone who meets him. This is his greatest advantage. Octavian, as history calls him, is nothing like Caesar. Caesar was brilliant and impulsive, fire and charm and genius. Octavian is something else entirely, patient, cold, methodical. A man who plays the long game with the precision of someone who intends to win it. He forms alliances. He breaks them when convenient. He defeats Mark Antony and Cleopatra at the Battle of Actium in 31 before the Common Era. And suddenly, there is no one left to fight. He stands alone at the center of the Roman world, master of everything. And here is where his true genius reveals itself. He does not call himself king. He does not declare himself dictator. He knows what those words do to Romans. He knows what happened to the last man who accumulated too much power too openly. He calls himself the first citizen, princeps. He pretends the Republic still exists. He keeps the Senate, the consuls, the old forms. But all real power belongs to him. The Senate gives him a new name, Augustus, the Venerated One. He rules for 41 years, the longest reign of any Roman emperor. He transforms Rome from a city of brick into a city of marble. He establishes the Pax Romana, the Roman peace, 2 centuries of relative stability and prosperity. In our next chapter, we live inside that peace and understand what Rome at its greatest truly meant. Rest now. The story continues. We continue our story. Under Augustus, something remarkable happens. Rome stops fighting itself. After a century of civil wars, of generals marching on generals, of blood in the Forum and bodies in the Tiber, the world grows quiet. This period of relative peace and prosperity will last for 200 years, from the reign of Augustus to the death of Marcus Aurelius in 180 of the Common Era. History calls it the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. In these 2 centuries, the Roman Empire reaches the height of its power and its glory. At its peak under the Emperor Trajan, Rome governs a territory of 5 million square kilometers, from the highlands of Scotland to the deserts of Mesopotamia, from the Rhine and Danube to the sands of the Sahara. More than 70 million people, perhaps 1/4 of all humanity, living under Roman rule. The roads bind them together. 80,000 kilometers of paved roads, straight engineered, built to last thousands of years. And they do last. Some are still walked today. Along these roads moves everything. Armies, merchants, ideas, religions, the mail. The Roman postal system is so efficient that a letter sent from Rome reaches the governors of distant provinces in weeks. In the cities, there is water, carried in by aqueducts, structures of stone and arch, that move rivers across valleys and through mountains to supply baths and fountains, and the households of a civilization that considers clean water a basic right. The language is Latin, spoken from Britain to Syria. The law is Roman, the same legal principles governing a merchant in Carthage and a farmer in Spain and a soldier on the Danube. It is not a perfect world. Slavery exists everywhere. The poor are desperately poor. The provinces are taxed heavily. But for 2 centuries, the Mediterranean world is more connected, more prosperous, and more stable than it has ever been. In our next chapter, the men who follow Augustus are not all worthy of his legacy. Rest now. The story continues. We continue our story. Not all who inherit power are worthy of it. After Augustus, a dynasty of emperors follows, the Julio-Claudians, named for the 2 great families whose blood they share. Tiberius rules first, cautious, capable, cruel in his later years, a man who governs well and dies unloved. Then comes Caligula. He is 24 years old when he takes the throne. Rome greets him with genuine affection. He is the son of a beloved general, young, promising. The people fill the streets to celebrate. Within a year, something changes. Perhaps illness, perhaps the intoxication of absolute power over millions of people. No one can say for certain what happens to Caligula's mind. What Rome witnesses is a descent into something it has no adequate words for. He executes senators on whims. He humiliates the nobility for entertainment. He declares himself a god and demands to be worshipped. He is said to have appointed his horse as a consul, whether true or exaggeration. The story is believed, because nothing about Caligula seems impossible. After 4 years, his own guards assassinate him in a corridor beneath the theater. Then comes Nero. Nero begins well. His early reign is called the Quinquennium Neronis. The 5 good years, competent administration, reasonable governance. And then he too changes. In July of the year 64, fire breaks out in Rome. It burns for 6 days, destroying 10 of the city's 14 districts, hundreds of thousands homeless. Nero blames the Christians, a small sect that has been growing quietly in the city. He has them arrested, tortured, executed, fed to animals in the arena, set on fire as human torches to illuminate his gardens at night. Whether Nero started the fire himself remains one of history's great unanswered questions. The Romans who lived through it were not sure either. In 68, the legions revolt. The Senate declares Nero an enemy of the state, condemned to die in the old fashion, beaten to death. Nero flees and hides in a freedman's villa outside the city. And when he hears the horsemen coming for him, he drives a dagger into his own throat. He is 30 years old, the last of the Julio-Claudians. In our next chapter, the earth itself reminds Rome of its fragility. Rest now, the story continues. We continue our story. It is the 24th of August, in the year 79 of the Common Era. On the shore of the Bay of Naples, in the shadow of a mountain called Vesuvius, life is ordinary. Pompeii is a prosperous city. 20,000 people, merchants and bakers, gladiators and priests, wealthy Romans with summer houses, servants and slaves, going about the business of a normal afternoon. Vesuvius has not erupted in living memory. The Romans do not know it is a volcano. They think it is simply a mountain. Its slopes are covered with vineyards. Its soil is dark and rich, from centuries of ancient ash that no one alive can remember falling. At around 1 in the afternoon, the mountain opens. A column of ash and gas and rock rises 20 kilometers into the sky. The sun disappears. Day becomes a darkness, unlike any night. The ash falls first, then pumice, stones raining from the sky. People flee. Some make it to the sea. Some hide in their homes. Some shelter in cellars and boathouses with their children and their silver and their gods. Then comes the pyroclastic surge, a wave of superheated gas and ash, moving faster than any human can run. In moments, Pompeii is gone. Buried under 4 meters of ash, preserved exactly as it was at the moment of its death. The bread still in the ovens, the graffiti still on the walls, the bodies in the positions they died in, curled, reaching, holding each other. 17 centuries later, archaeologists begin to dig. And Pompeii is there, exactly as Rome left it, on that August afternoon, when the mountain opened and time stopped. In our next chapter, Rome builds its most enduring monument, a place where 50,000 people gather to watch the spectacle of life and death. Rest now, the story continues. We continue our story. In the heart of Rome, between the Palatine and the Esquiline Hills, there stands a structure that has endured for nearly 2,000 years. The Colosseum. It is completed in the year 80 of the Common Era, under the Emperor Titus, built by the labor of tens of thousands of workers, Jewish slaves brought from Judea. After the destruction of Jerusalem, engineers and craftsmen and architects who solve problems of scale and structure that will not be solved again for more than a millennium. It holds 80,000 people, perhaps more, the largest amphitheatre ever built, a marvel of engineering that influences stadium design to the present day. Its opening is marked by 100 days of games, 100 days of spectacle and slaughter on a scale the ancient world has never seen. 9,000 animals killed, exotic creatures from Africa and Asia, lions, elephants, rhinoceroses brought to Rome from the farthest reaches of the empire to die for the entertainment of 80,000 people. And the gladiators, men trained to fight, to entertain, to die. Some are slaves, some are criminals, some are prisoners of war, some are volunteers drawn by the money, by the fame, by the strange celebrity that Rome grants to those who fight well and survive. The crowd decides their fate, thumbs up or thumbs down, live or die. It is a brutal entertainment by any measure, and yet it is also something Rome believes in with complete sincerity, that the spectacle of courage in the face of death teaches something essential about what it means to be Roman. The Colosseum still stands today, damaged by earthquakes, stripped of its marble by later builders, but standing in the middle of modern Rome, surrounded by traffic and tourists and the noise of a living city. A reminder that some things are built to last. In our next chapter, Rome reaches its greatest height under 5 emperors who govern wisely and one who thinks in centuries. Rest now. The story continues. We continue our story. Not all emperors are Caligula. Not all emperors are Nero. Between the years 96 and 180 of the Common Era, Rome is governed by 5 men, whom history will call the 5 good emperors. Nerva Trajan Hadrian, Antoninus Pius Marcus Aurelius. Each one chosen not by blood, but by merit, each one adopting his successor, selecting the best man available, rather than simply the nearest relative. Under Trajan, the empire reaches its greatest extent. 5 million square kilometers from Scotland to Mesopotamia, the largest Rome will ever be. Trajan is a soldier's emperor. Born in Spain, the first emperor. Born outside Italy, he campaigns in Dacia, modern Romania, and in the East. He builds, he feeds the poor. He is loved. Hadrian travels everywhere. He visits almost every province of the empire, inspects the legions, studies the architecture. In Britain, he builds a wall. Across the entire island, 73 miles from sea to sea, Hadrian's wall, parts of it still stand today. And then Marcus Aurelius, a philosopher king who never wanted to be emperor, who would rather have spent his days in study and contemplation, but who accepts the burden of power with the same discipline he applies to everything. He writes in a private journal, never intended for publication, his meditations, reflections on duty and virtue, on the transience of life, on how to bear difficulty with equanimity. It is one of the most read books in the world today, written by a man who ruled the world 2,000 years ago, in the middle of wars and plagues, when everything was hard. He writes, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In our next chapter, the strength Rome finds is tested, as it has never been tested before. Rest now. The story continues. We continue our story. Marcus Aurelius dies in the year 180 of the Common Era, on campaign along the Danube, far from Rome, far from his books and his thoughts, and the quiet he always preferred to the noise of power. He is succeeded by his son, Commodus. The 5 good emperors had chosen their successors by merit. Marcus Aurelius chooses by blood, and it is the last good decision Rome makes for a very long time. Commodus believes himself to be the god Hercules reincarnated. He fights in the arena as a gladiator, renames Rome after himself, renames the months after himself. He is assassinated in 1902 by members of his own household. What follows is one of the darkest periods in Roman history. The crisis of the 3rd century, through 335 to 284 of the Common Era. 50 years in which Rome has more than 20 emperors, most of them killed by the men who replaced them. The empire is simultaneously attacked on all its borders. Germanic tribes press from the north. The Sassanid Persian Empire attacks from the east. The empire briefly fractures into 3 separate pieces. The Gallic Empire in the west, the Palmyrene Empire in the east, and Rome in the center, each claiming to be the true heir of Augustus. The economy collapses. The coinage is debased. Plagues sweep through the population. Cities shrink. Trade withers. The roads that once carried the lifeblood of civilization fall into disrepair. And yet Rome does not fall. Not yet. From the chaos, a soldier rises, a man named Diocletian, who does something no one has thought to do before. He divides the empire to save it. In our next chapter, a new religion and a new capital transform Rome into something its founders would not recognize. Rest now. The story continues. We continue our story. From the chaos of the 3rd century, a soldier named Diocletian pulls Rome back from the edge of collapse. He divides the empire into 4 regions, 4 rulers sharing power, the Tetrarchy. A practical solution to an impossible problem. An empire too large for one man to govern. It works, while Diocletian is alive to make it work. When he abdicates in 305, the system falls apart. Civil war again, rivals fighting for the pieces Diocletian left behind. From that war emerges one man, Constantine. In the year 312, Constantine marches on Rome to meet his rival Maxentius at the Milvian Bridge, just north of the city. The night before the battle, Constantine reports a vision, a symbol in the sky. The Chi-Rho, the first 2 letters of Christ in Greek, and words beside it, in this sign, conquer. He orders his soldiers to paint the symbol on their shields. He wins the battle. His rival drowns in the Tiber, and Constantine becomes the sole ruler of the West. Whether his vision was genuine or politically calculated, historians have debated for 17 centuries. What is not debated is what happens next. Constantine issues the Edict of Milan. Christianity, which had been persecuted for 3 centuries, is now tolerated, protected, favored. He builds churches. He funds the church. He calls the Council of Nicosia, the first great council of Christian bishops, to settle theological disputes and unify the faith. And then he does something that will shape the next 1,000 years of history. He moves the capital of the empire east to an ancient Greek city called Byzantium on the shore of the Bosphorus, where Europe meets Asia. He rebuilds it, expands it, fills it with art and wealth and power, and renames it Constantinople, the city of Constantine. In our next chapter, the empire he unified begins to pull apart, never to come back together. Rest now, the story continues. We continue our story. Constantine has built a new Rome in the east. Constantinople, gleaming powerful, positioned at the crossroads of two continents. He dies in 337 of the Common Era, having ruled for 30 years, having transformed the empire from a pagan world into a Christian one, having moved its center of gravity eastward toward the richer, more populous, more stable half of what Rome has become. The emperors who follow him struggle to hold what he has built together. In 380, the Emperor Theodosius takes the step. Constantine stops short of. He declares Christianity not merely tolerated, but the only permitted religion of the Roman Empire. The old gods of Rome, Jupiter, Mars, Venus, worshipped for 1,000 years, are officially abandoned. And then Theodosius dies in 3095 of the Common Era. And he does something that will echo through the centuries. He divides the empire between his two sons. Arcadius takes the east, Honorius takes the west. It is intended as a practical measure, a temporary arrangement, a way to govern what has grown too large for one man to manage. The empire is never unified again. The two halves drift apart, different languages, Greek in the east, Latin in the west, different threats, different strengths, different fates. The eastern half is wealthier, more urban, better defended. Its great city, Constantinople, sits behind walls that no army can breach. The western half is poorer, more exposed, its borders longer, its army stretched thinner, its emperors weaker. In our next chapter, something comes from the east that makes all of this worse. Rest now. The story continues. We continue our story. From the vast grasslands east of the Volga River, from the steppes of Central Asia, a people is moving westward. The Huns. Nomadic warriors, born on horseback, fighting on horseback, eating on horseback. A people so completely adapted to a life of movement that the settled peoples of Europe and Rome have no adequate concept for what they represent. They arrive at the edges of the Roman world in the late 4th century, and they push everything before them. Germanic tribes that Rome has managed for generations. The Visigoths, the Ostrogoths, the Vandals, the Burgundians are pushed westward into Roman territory, into Roman lands like water forced through a narrowing pipe. And then comes their greatest leader, Attila. He inherits command of the Huns in 434 of the Common Era. And for the next 19 years, he is the most feared man in the known world. The Romans call him the Scourge of God, the belief being that God has sent this man as punishment for the sins of a declining world. He attacks the Eastern Empire. He extracts enormous tribute. He invades Gaul, He's turned back at the Battle of the Catalonian Plains in 451, the last great victory of the Western Roman legions. He turns south into Italy, burning cities, approaching Rome itself. And then he stops. Pope Leo I rides out to meet him. No army, no weapons, just an old man in white robes. What they say to each other is not recorded, but Attila turns his army around and leaves Italy. The following year he dies of a nosebleed on his wedding night. The most feared conqueror in the world, killed by his own blood. But the damage is done. Rome is hollowed out. The West is unraveling. In our next chapter, Rome is sacked for the first time in 800 years. Rest now. The story continues. We continue our story. For 800 years, no foreign army has entered Rome. 800 years since the Gauls briefly occupied the city in 390 before the Common Era. Rome has been inviolable, the eternal city, protected by its legions, by its walls, by the sheer weight of its reputation. That reputation dies in August of the year 410. A Germanic people called the Visigoths have been pressing against the borders of the empire for decades. They are not barbarians in the simple sense. They are Christians. They speak some Latin. They have served in Roman armies. They have been promised land and payment by emperors who then fail to deliver. Their king is Alaric, a man who has spent years trying to negotiate with a Roman government that insults him and ignores him and breaks its promises to him. He runs out of patience. 3 times he besieges Rome. Twice he accepts payment and withdraws. The 3rd time, his army enters the city. For 3 days, the Visigoths move through Rome. They take gold and silver, grain and clothing. They free the slaves. They respect the churches. They do not burn the city. They are not the total destruction of legend. But Rome is sacked. The shock across the empire is profound and immediate. The city that had stood for 1,000 years, the center of civilization, the eternal city, has fallen to a barbarian army. Saint Augustine, writing in North Africa, hears the news and begins writing a book called The City of God, arguing that the true Rome is not the city of marble, but the city of faith, which no army can sack. The earthly city is falling. The question now is what comes next. In our next chapter, the answer arrives in the form of a 16-year-old boy and a German chieftain who ends an empire with a single gesture. Rest now. The story continues. We continue our story. It is the year 4076 of the Common Era. Western Roman Empire has been dying for a long time. Not in a single moment, not in a single battle, but slowly, the way a great fire dies. First the flames, then the embers, then the glow, then nothing but ash and the memory of warmth. The emperors of the West have become shadows of power, controlled by generals, by Germanic warlords, who command the armies that defend the empire. They are slowly consuming. The last Western Roman emperor is a boy. His name is Romulus Augustus, 16 years old. His name contains the founder of Rome and the title of its greatest emperor. And he has the power of neither. He has been placed on the throne by his father, a general named Augustus, who rules through the boy as a puppet. A Germanic chieftain named Odoacer leads the German soldiers who make up most of the Western army. He demands land for his people. Orestes refuses. Odoacer raises his army, defeats and kills Orestes, marches to Ravenna, the capital of the late Western Empire. And there he finds the boy emperor, Romulus Augustulus, sitting on a throne that means nothing, in a city that no longer matters, at the end of a story that has already been told. Odoacer does not kill him, perhaps because he is a child, perhaps because killing him would make him matter. He simply removes him, sends him to a castle in southern Italy with a pension, with his life, and sends the imperial regalia, the crown, the robes, the symbols of Western Roman power, to Constantinople, to the Eastern Emperor Zeno, with a message. One emperor is enough for the whole empire. And with that, the Western Roman Empire is gone. No apocalypse, no final battle, no dramatic last stand, just a boy removed from a throne, and an empire quietly ceasing to exist. In our next chapter, the other half of Rome survives for nearly 1,000 years more. Rest now. The story continues. We continue our story. The West has fallen. The city of Romulus, the city of Augustus, the city of Caesar is no longer the center of anything. But Rome is not over. In the east, on the shore of the Bosporus, where Europe reaches toward Asia, across a narrow strip of water, the other half of the empire continues. Constantinople, the city of Constantine, built on the ancient Greek city of Byzantium, surrounded on 3 sides by water, protected on the 4th by walls so massive, so carefully engineered that no army on earth can breach them. The Eastern Roman Empire will survive the fall of the West by nearly 1,000 years. In the 6th century, under the Emperor Justinian, It briefly reconquers parts of Italy and North Africa. Justinian codifies Roman law into a single body. The Corpus Juris Civilis, the foundation of legal systems across Europe to this day. His wife, Theodora, born to a circus family, risen to empress, is his equal in intelligence and his superior in nerve. When rebels threaten to drive them from power, and his advisors urge him to flee, she says, "Purple makes a fine burial shroud." They stay, they survive. They rule together for 23 years. The Byzantine Empire carries the flame of Rome through the dark centuries of the early medieval world. It preserves the texts, the philosophy, the art, the legal tradition of classical civilization, while the West slowly rebuilds itself from the ruins. But nothing lasts forever, not even the successor to the eternal city. In our final chapter, the walls of Constantinople fall at last, and the long story of Rome comes to its true end. Rest now, the story continues. We arrive at the end of our story. It is the 29th of May, 1443, Constantinople. The city that Constantine built, the city that has stood for 1,000 years after the West fell. Outside its great walls, an Ottoman army of perhaps 80,000 men has been besieging the city for 53 days under a young sultan named Mehmed II. 21 years old, brilliant, relentless, in possession of cannons large enough to reduce the walls that no army has ever breached. The last Roman emperor is Constantine the 11th. He knows what is coming. He has been offered safe passage. He refuses. On the morning of the 29th of May, the walls are breached. Constantine rides into battle. He is last seen fighting on foot. His body is never found. The Eastern Roman Empire is over. 2,206 years after Romulus killed Remus and named a city on 7 hills after himself, Rome is finally finished. Or is it? Look around the world today. The evidence of Rome is everywhere. The languages, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, Romanian, all descended from Latin, spoken by more than 1 billion people. The law, the legal systems of most of Europe and the Americas are built on Roman foundations. The concepts of innocent until proven guilty, of contracts, of property rights, of the separation of powers. The calendar, the months still bear the names the Romans gave them: July for Julius Caesar, August for Augustus. The roads, some of them still walk the aqueducts, some still carrying water. The buildings, the Pantheon in Rome, still standing, still intact, after 2,000 years. The idea of a republic of elected representatives, of laws that apply equally, that no person is above. This comes from Rome, from the 12 bronze tablets in the Forum, from the long argument about what a just society should look like. Rome fell, as all things fall. But it did not disappear. It became the world we live in. Its roads are our roads, its laws are our laws, its language is in our mouths. Tonight we have followed its story together, from the she-wolf on the banks of the Tiber, to the last emperor fighting alone at the walls of Constantinople. From 7 hills to the world, slowly, calmly, across 2,000 years. Now rest. The story has been told. Sleep well.